information for passerbyers. We picked that date because it was the date that the Taliban were invited to come to Berlin for negotiations, and they have already been in Oslo and in other, I believe in Geneva as well. So our question is mostly like, if the West or the global North invaded Afghanistan 20 years ago to combat terrorism, which is also something that we connect with the Palestine struggle at this moment, then how come they are now being de facto recognized? How come they are on the way to recognition, actually? And is it because of these trade agreements that they have, and what defines actually a terrorist? Is it just a label that we are getting to be able to have geopolitical strategies? And these are just questions that anyone and everyone should always ask. And yeah, we are also supporting an underground school in Afghanistan of women and girls, which is illegal in this moment of time. And yeah, we continuously try our best with the capacities that we have.
Thank you very much, Solfar. Then I think we can continue with Safia Erol from Sheni Ifao. Please introduce yourself and say something about Sheni Ifao as well.
سلاورز ام لسر ناوی بیروا جنی کرد آشتی کاری خو لآلمانیا دیدن مشاندن اف 24 سال 25 سال ببورینن ام کاری خوی دیپلماسی لسر بیروا جنی آشتی دیدن مشاندن جبرگو اف بیروا ما اف کاری ما دنگ جنا بهفدره کار پورکرن ام دیدن.
Hello, I'm translating for Safia. So my name is Safia Erol, and I'm representing today the Kurdish Women's Office for Peace. So that is called Jenny, and it is about 25 years that we are working on the. Our focus is on the women's rights and something like that, and the so we are working on the activities and so women's activities in Deutschland. So that's it.
Thank you very much. Okay, then I go to my left, Mazdak, who will also introduce himself, and he's a very short notice panelist because Wafa couldn't make it today, so we're very glad you could make it in such short notice.
Hello everybody, my name is Mazdak. Some people might know me with my former name, Alireza Askari. I'm a former member of Iranian independent labor organizations in Iran back when I was there active. And I have been working as an organizer and instructor in Iranian labor movement, and also as an activist within the movement for advocating refugees, including Afghanistani people in Iran, and child rights issues. I now live in exile in Sweden, where I did one master's. I acquired one master's degree in humanitarian action and conflict, and one in human rights and democracy, and the third one in journalism studies. Recently, I have been active in introducing and promoting and discussing the collective decision-making, collective struggle, which we call it from the tradition of Iranian labor movement, a conceal-oriented organizing. And I'm
apologize. Anyone who wants to, jede, die deutsche Übersetzung braucht, bitte wechselt den Kanäle zu Kanal 5 jetzt. Also es gab irgend so ein Problem mit dem Sender, tut uns leid. Für die deutsche Sprache bitte benutzt Kanäle 5.
Can we also get a headphone for Safia for the German translation? Thank you.
what was I saying? Okay. The collective decision-making and collective struggle and acts, which we call it, based on the tradition coming from Iranian labor movement, particularly in Haftape, conceal-oriented organizing. So this day I'm engaged in participating in conferences and introducing the conceal-oriented organizing and conceal governance.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, Fatoui. I hope that's a right pronunciation. I botched it up before. Apologies. Yes, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Fatoui, a failed wannabe intellectual who turned into community gardening to reach people in Berlin. My experience living in Berlin starts building a garden in a cemetery and working with a 15-member strong Africans by then recently escaping conflict in Niger and Mali. My work has since expanded into taking over former schools of gardening into a community action center. Since then also expanded into doing a radio show that solely talks about us minorities in the context of who we are, which is to say, what is it that we have that we left back home? And what is it that we have back home that we don't have here? And how do we crystallize the difference? And in that spirit, I've talked to Mexicans or Iranians or Israelis or Japanese or Indians with regards to how our past experience informs our future. And I've currently, at least this year, have had some nice endeavor into doing a set of panel talks in the name of Civic City, a draußen stattfunded project in which yours, Elahe Kohistani, was part of. And I look forward to chatting about how revolutions will change us, or we will be changed by them, or where we're at with the state of revolution. Thank you.
Thank you all. Yeah, I think we've seen somehow where we're at the stage of revolution, at least in Germany, with continued repression, or a heightened repression, I would say, and the closing of spaces of actual liberal rights, so to say, such as organizing and protesting, which we've seen have been banned German-wide, not just in Berlin. And this also puts our general, again, this idea that none of us are free until all of us are free, this puts all of our struggles at risk. But there's also hope, and yesterday we had a great big demonstration. Where also, I think your collective gave a speech. And maybe also to touch what you said about organizing in diaspora and what is different and what is missing. And maybe we can explore this a bit more. So what are the challenges of organizing in diaspora? And yeah, maybe this is one question. Who would like to go first? Zolfar, maybe we'll do a round again. What are the challenges when organizing in the diaspora? And sort of touching what Fatoui also said, what Fatoui said, and what you explored, this idea of what is missing and what is different. And yeah, I'm not sure if this microphone works. Can we get another microphone to work? It would be great. Otherwise,
Hello. We have many challenges in the diaspora. So, because Afghanistan has been continuously over at least the last 40 years having to deal with war and fighting and like oppression in many different forms in different areas and eras, and it has caused like a huge sense of hopelessness that like in German they say kriegsmüde, like tired of war or tired of revolution, basically like an exhaustion that faces most of the communities that come from Afghanistan. So we have seen that like since there has been so many lives lost, people are also submitting to the state that like Afghanistan is in right now, even if they really disagree and suffer from depression or like PTSD. So we're really having struggles to motivate people, because a lot of people say, okay, what's the point? Like they've been maybe demonstrating for decades at some point or organizing, and a lot of people are like, okay, where is this gonna go? Is it going to go anywhere? Are we going to call for another war by doing more of this like revolutionary acts? And yeah, it requires a lot of care work to be able to have people be motivated again, and also to feel like through pushing these political agendas, they would be able to actually free themselves from this tiredness, and also feel like at least they're doing something, because they are all thinking about it and they're all talking about it in their private circles. So yeah, we're having a lot of challenges to understand the different facets, because from the outside maybe people think we don't care about our own problems, but the reality is like many Afghans have to deal with also the structural oppression in Germany or in other countries. Like in Germany, the bureaucratic system is, as an asylum seeker, degrees are not recognized. They have like a huge number on tolerance or Duldung, a huge number on Abschiebestopp, which like of course with the recognition of the Taliban, like a whole hundreds of thousands would be then at risk to be deported. And having these like personal problems, it's really hard to find then also capacity to be able to go out and do demonstrations or do revolutionary acts. So within our collective, we're really understanding, with people having to go to Deutschkurs, with people having to redo degrees that they've already studied, with people having to send money to their families in Afghanistan, Iran, and Pakistan. And like many of them have families in Iran or Pakistan, which over there they are even worse, like especially with the rise of racism in Iran and in Pakistan and their risk of being deported as well. It just adds on so many layers that we don't even know sometimes where, like, how can we even tackle all these problems, like, because there's so many. And in the European borders, a lot of them are Afghans, in Turkey. So yeah, we're really trying to manage everything also within our community, like with the war and oppression, of course, causes of like feminism takes the back foot because survival was the priority now over the last 40 years, and it's also like a critical point from the outside, which is really also not understanding at all like what war means. And I don't like when people say things on like feminism or queer issues, like in places of like, for example, apartheid as well, oppression or war, like how do you think that could even develop at all? Like when people are trying to like have their basic needs and they don't even have those met, like you can't even expect that. Like it's very a theoretical point of view or academic that doesn't work in real life. And I think, yeah, so finding like this kind of community care plus like psychological sensible aspect with political things is for us like mostly the way that we would like to approach on how to have a different way, because like with the war it also has like many layers of trust issues that have developed, and yeah, basically.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a round of I think community care is very important, and it's very hard to make that space with everything, all these structural oppressions going on, and people waiting in this waiting line in the asylum procedure, and it makes people very depressed. Yeah, I want to just continue, and I will give you the mic, and you can explore what it means to organize in the diaspora and what challenges you face.
تسريده د شخص جنا آرمیتا گووندی ده کسی کو جیانا خوش دستانه و هاتنه شهید کرن ام بجنا خواه دتوینن لهم بریون.
First of all, I want to say hello to Armita Gravand, who was killed by the morality police in Iran. And we have to give our condolences to the family and all of the people in Iran.
ام جنب کرد مخوا چوا برخستن کر مچوا کاری خوا لدیاسپورا دامشاندن. سال 1809 دبن سیوانا یه جوه کده ما کارو خبات خوا لأوروپا دست بکر.
As a Kurdish woman in 1989, so as a so what's that? So as a YJ so as a Yakitiya Jinan Ulat Paris Kurdistan, so so Kurdish Women's Unity, so we started our activity in Germany.
مدام کار خود دست بکر ما پیشی دنوا جواکی دست بکر جمحلا بگرن شتاقا بگرن لهر جهی ما قط هر مالکی کرد هر مالکی جنان جه پرورده وک اکادمیه که جنه
So at that time we started with the focus on the society. For example, we visited different women's in different houses in Germany, and we went to the houses, we visited the Kurdish women at that time on the streets everywhere. So we met every women, Kurdish women in Germany everywhere.
ج پروردا زاروکا بگیره، ج پروردا جواکی بگیره، ج پروردا جنا بگیره. یعنی همو قطمان نوا جواکی ده جیان دکن ما گوت امی جن خبری خستن بکن.
And we decided to inform all the women about their rights, about the rights of the children, and we had a lot of talk with the women, with the Kurdish women, about the society, about the social consciousness, about the political consciousness, women's rights, and everything. We had to talk with them.
tabii ki perverde me ligori ihtiyacı civake çi lazime? Mesela veke hevjiyana azat nava malbatı de, nava civake de kevne paristiyel hemberi jine, jin kumkrini ser hevde çıkası zahmeti van hene, نزیکبون جواکی و شدت دولت لسر جنا چوا پسیکولوژیک چکر هموش با ما بونه مجاره پرورده بجناره هف بارکرنک.
And we educated them, so together, I think, as we talked together based on the political education, women's education, female education, or something like that, and we concentrated on the so for example, free life, so in a family, in a society, and about the relationship of the women with the government and how the state and that power of state affected upon the psychology of the women. And so, for example, another example, can I say, is the patriarchy. How are they affected with the patriarchy?
چالکی بسر بخوا بری خستن کرن بهیز جنا مثلا حمله ما دو یمین امه چوا جن نوا جوا که جیتی خن نوا ویکاری ده حمله ما دو یمین جی مگو اف جن نوا جوا که ده جی امه چوا تخن نوا کاری خوده.
And the second one was that how to make the women involved in the political activities and how to work, how to know their rights, and how to understand where they are.
ما چالکی خواه سر بخواه دار خستن ما گوت امه بخواه جن ارگانیزه بکن بره جن کار بکن یعنی دناوا کار شورش ده هر جن کار کی بکی لگوری هیزاوی ما خبر خستن کریانه.
And we organized ourselves based on our power at that time that we had. So, and we were independent. We want to make ourselves, the Kurdish women, at that time to be independent and powerful women to take part in the political activities and how they can participate in the revolution, women's revolution, and how they can organize themselves.
Yani me got bedena jine weka akha be eshe. Yani çiqasi eş u zor u zahmeti lisar jine çe bibin hew qasi jin gereke rexistine xwe mezin bikin bi jine cihani re bi jine hemû gelê bindest re hemû kesê bêwelat re em xwe bi rêxistin bigirin em xwe tevgera xwe mezin bikin û em xwe bigihîjînin em bibin dengê jinê cîhanê giştî.
And we talked about the body of the women at that time, how to make their bodies out of the pressure which was made by the state, by the patriarchy or something like that. Because we believe that the body of women are affected or are under the influence and attack of the patriarchy, state and everything. So, and all of the suffers of the women is because of their body. And we wanted to be the sound of and we wanted to raise the voice of all the women, all oppressed women all over the world, those women who are dislocated, those women who are oppressed around the world.
ما وک جن کرد ما پیشنگی ارتش بونه کر ما پیشنگی آبوریه کر ما پیشنگی کار جواکی کر ما وک پیشنگیه که نوا جیانه ده دامشاندن tabii ki devlet و سیستم جی والا ندسکنی gelek cara em jin digirtin em qatil dikirin dest tavetin bedena me.
Although we, as a Kurdish women, so we were a pioneer of the social, economical, and political issues, and so we informed the other women politically, socially, and economically. But on the other hand, the state and the system was so they have influence upon the women, because there is at that time, and there is now that the femicide, and we wanted to inform the women, be aware of their body, be aware of what they are and who they are.
Me kampanya dest pê dikirin em namusa tikesinînin em namusa azadiya xwe ne. Yani ji ber got devleta dixwast sîstemê dagirger dixwast ki di şexsê jinê de gelê Kurd civaka Kurd têk bibe. Yani işte jin tên girtin, tên tecavüz kirin, tên qatil kirin. Yani wisa jin û civak û namus pev vegirê didan. Me jî got ki em namusa tikesinînin em namusa azadiya xwe ne. Ji bo wê yekê me ev kampanya dest pê kir, peyre me kampanya xwebûn dest pê kir.
And we started a campaign and said that we are nobody's namus, and we don't belong to anybody. So we belong to ourselves. We are independent. So our namus is our freedom. So we are free women, and nobody can control us. Nobody can have the control of over our body. And so we connected this oppression with the Kurdish oppression in different parts, so that the state wanted to occupy us, occupy the women, occupy the mentality of the women, and it was the same as the Kurdish people that are occupied by the occupiers, for example, nation state. So I want to correct it that I said we are, so the women, so they started a campaign that we are nobody's namus, that one of my friends told me it is in English honor. We are nobody's honor. Our honor is inside us, and it is nobody's honor.
Çıka erişe dijmin, erişe civaka kevna Paris sermezede bun hev qasi me hev da ki go em sazi xwe avakin. Yani ancak em vakara be sazi bun peşya hinek tiştavekin. Mesela dema me sazi xwe vekirin, dema me çalekiye jina çekirin, dema go me vek irade jin kari her kari bike. Em netirsiyan. Mesela en mümüneke büçük em dihatin girtin tecavüz dikirin jin digo ez azadiya gelê xwe me ez azadî ji bo azadiya hemû cina te kuşîn dikim ez serbilindim em jinê Kurd ji êşê laşê xwe em fêrî jiyana birêxistin bûn.
So, and based on our will, women's will, we organized ourselves. We made a lot of structures, organization, so based on our organizing. And it was, all of them were based on our will. So although we were captured by the state, we were arrested by the state, and so we were raped, but we said that we are free. We suffered a lot under the pressure of the state, under the violence, state violence or something like that. But we didn't lose our will to freedom. And yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think self-organizing in spaces of repression and tying the patriarchy to the state, which is, you know, the state embodies the patriarchy, this is the only way you can channel this organization if you, because the two tied are very, very closely linked. I will just continue giving the mic with the same question in mind. What challenges do you face in the diaspora? You mentioned you're in Sweden. It's maybe also a bit different than here in Germany. And
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I see this term of diaspora quite problematic, actually. Not that I do not recognize or acknowledge the border or local or geographic challenges and barriers and hinders and spatial reality which exists. But I see it like, not that I do not want support other people around the globe, but the issue is that I believe, well, in today's world, almost everything, like economically, politically, socially, culturally, is intertwined and interlinked, and they do impact each other. So by acknowledging diaspora as an independent entity, it causes, I would say, kind of problems for our struggles. Well, we do have some capacities here. For instance, when we are struggling for the woman life freedom movement, or for Rojava, or for Afghanistan, or other countries, Eritrea in Africa, well, there are capacities here that we could use it. So if we continue emphasizing on the term and on the concept of diaspora, we might kind of reproduce the disappointment and hopelessness among people. We hear that so many people says, well, I'm here in Europe, what can I do for people in Iran or in Afghanistan? Those who are there should change everything. That's correct, but we do have our responsibilities too. That's why I see this more as a global, I mean, our struggle is a global struggle. Well, it doesn't particularly depend on ethnicity or race as such, which is claimed, or a nation or border. We know all this, but what are the implications of such an insight I do have, which is, well, there in Iran, for instance, there is a repressive regime, the Islamic regime of Iran. And let's have a look to the Western world, for instance, Germany, Sweden, United States, other countries, other Western world. Well, I do believe that we should use all capacities for pushing forward the struggles, but we should not continue having this illusion that maybe parliaments in Europe or governments in Europe or Canada or United States will support us in this emancipation way in which we are struggling. I do see them as an extended hand of other suppressive regime. So again, I do use any possible capacity for supporting the struggles in Afghanistan, for instance, or in Iran. But one should bear in mind that elites in other countries are not our partners. They are, we see it explicitly that they are supporting other repressive regimes, and what they are seeking is only their own interest. So by saying that, I would say there is another insight, as I said, saying, well, we are living, for instance, here in Germany or in Sweden. So you see that the uprising is not that that high as it was like 1 year ago. So, for instance, Taliban is now there, as you said, correctly mentioned. So many countries in the governments in the world, at least, they are recognizing Taliban de facto. So some might say, well, you know, the whole world is recognized Taliban, or you see the uprising is not as it was in 1 year ago in Iran. Then that's why we do not have so much demonstration here in Sweden or in Germany. I do not agree with that. When the people over there are under suppress, we have to do more, twice, and much more. It's our responsibility to be more active when those people are suppressed more. So with this diaspora thing, I do have this insight, and I do not completely agree or recognize the term diaspora. We are globally intertwined and interlinked. This is a global struggle. We have to work together, and it's not. And the problem of, for instance, Afghanistan won't be solved unless we all try to solve it. The same applies to the issue in Iran, or the struggle in Iran. The same for Rojava, the same for Africa, and all parts of the world.
I think that's a very important note, that this idea of diaspora is not there to unlink, but to see it in a collective form. And also very powerful to say we have to do twice as much to leverage. And I also agree that I don't think the governments of the European Union or Western states will be the ones to solve the problem at all. I think we are also struggling against them, also as you said, with all the institutions, especially for refugees, that make it so much harder to form a struggle. Yeah, thank you very much. I will continue giving the mic to you with the same question in mind.
Thank you very much, and thank you for everybody's inputs. I would say the revolution starts with having more than one microphone on this stage, so that we can all have a chat, perhaps. I suppose my answer is far more institutional than anecdotal evidence that's been given. A man who I don't like to mention here once said, all revolutions are judged not by their outcomes, but by the spirit in which they were started in the first place. That aspiration for freedom, that aspiration to say enough, is what makes a revolution, and not how it ends up in the first place. Now, in that spirit, all of the revolutions that I have followed since 2005 have succeeded in being revolutions, but have also failed in making it to what we wanted them to do in the first place. Because we keep having these revolutions, and as a person who lives in the diaspora, I always ask myself several questions as to why they don't work out. One is, of course, these revolutions need to happen within their countries, and those who start them need to have a clear line of what kind of institutional change they need to have. And we, who live in this part of the world, are guilty of looking at the world we live in and looking at the freedom it entails without looking at what institutions that has brought about it. How does power work, and how does power's dissemination work? When we look at our parts of the world, we actually ask that what exists here needs to be brought to where we come from without asking the fundamental questions like, do you have the right to say whatever you like without being kicked in the ass by the police? Why does such a fundamental, simple thing not exist? Why is it so hard to train the simplest of things, such as you as an individual are sovereign and should have the right to say whatever you have to say, without going to the big picture items of having democratic institutions, legalistic systems free of corruption, and how we go about it. Now, I am here perhaps representing the African continent, so perhaps I will say that we've had revolutions so far in Niger, in Central African countries, in which, slowly, okay. If I were to report on how it is happening in Africa, I say we are seeing the same spirits of revolution coming back again. Some of them because of the righteous indignation of what the French have done to post-colonial Africa. But what also fails us is what we want to see in one of these countries are revolutions led by military juntas, which are never revolutions in the first place because we are the product of these revolutions since time before. Communism was instructed, and the best example I could give you is Ethiopia was one of those countries in which the emperor, like the Iranian emperor, was overthrown by a military junta, promising a transition to a certain fair and equitable system. In response, what we got was the genocidal maniac who killed some of the most important individuals in our country, the most educated and the most able. The result of it is that in the District of Columbia of the United States, we have more Ethiopian doctors than the whole of Ethiopia combined. These people left. They chose to walk on their feet. So the question then becomes, we the diaspora who live in these systems ask the countries we have left to be free of their current rulers without asking what practical steps are needed and where our energy should be concentrated. I have given up on this idea of, because I live here, I demand that such a thing happen in that part of the world, because the government in this country, looking out for its own citizens, is okay with any kind of government on that side. I am the one fighting or advocating for a change in Iran, a change in Mali, a change in Ethiopia, a change in any other country, without talking about the grassroots political steps we need to do. At what part do we have to focus before going after all of them? My trouble, from my own example, I could tell you is, I have observed the revolution that happened in Ethiopia in 2018, where this revolution was capped by a Nobel Prize winning minister president. Turns out the peace that was curated between Ethiopia and Eritrea was a war pact and not a peace pact. So as soon as the war started in the northern region, the diasporic elements of the northern regions, the Tigrayans, came up with a formidable campaign to fight against the government's war. And they were partially successful because you started hearing it on European news, which otherwise does not care about what happens in Africa. So they had a concentrated campaign that led to a certain ceasefire. I'd give them credit for that. But what happened since the ceasefire in Ethiopia, after this devastating, the most devastating conflict in the world that killed 1 million people in 18 months, was a de facto peace resolution that was neither peaceful, nor transactional, nor enabling to make further peace last. So the diaspora community that was concentrated in making this change got disillusioned itself, because its aim were so many listed, but it couldn't even do item number 1. In our revolutions and in the places we live, we fail to practically say we start and change one thing and followed by another. To me, I hate to say it, the first and foremost thing that I would ask is, how do you make sure every citizen's right to speak freely, even if it's against you? How do you make that concept go? And how do you teach an entire security apparatus a concept that every citizen's rights are to be heard, and they are not to be shot or killed or imprisoned or abused by an entire system that we seek revolution against? So I believe as diaspora we fail to see that, in the sense that we fail to, or we aim for so many things that we clearly cannot achieve because our reach is limited. As I have told you, I've done 3 years, 4 years worth of radio shows talking to people who look like me or who come from the global south. Again, the ambitions are quite big. Our practical steps are nowhere to be found because we are not looking at this critically and dismantling it one by one so that we can go after practical solutions one by one. The diaspora has considerable power, financial, economical, informational, technological. I've never doubted it. But has it ever been concentrated to a task of achieving one task followed by another? Has it been incremental? Has it been strategic? I don't know. And I have not seen any evidence to say such a thing. And last point that I would like to do is, we are on YouTube and several other platforms chatting this conversation right now, which tells you anybody with a little bit of internet bandwidth can actually get to hear this in Kurdistan, to hear it in Ethiopia, to hear it in other places. We are working in a time of incredible change where we, the youngsters, are having a chat about revolution, whereas the institutions that have been there forever cannot budge because we're not making credible threat to these people's existence. In other words, all they have to do for us not to talk about is cut the entire internet, and that's it. So how have we come up with a formidable plan to change places where we come from? What are the ways to get there? How do we focus democratically and in an inclusive manner that reaches everybody? I say for the African continent, we're not there yet, and it will take us a while because we don't have the intellectual locus that needs to have this change happen. Don't get me wrong, there are a lot of Africans that are educated, but they're looking after their own, and somehow, even though the intellectual capacity is there, the political capacity is not there. And so, if the state of the revolution is to be asked, the answer is quite difficult, yes or no, depending on how you look at it. But there is an uprising in our part of the world because these chain revolutions are happening in Africa. I say in Iran, it's the same thing. And in several other places where people are fed up with the status quo. But have we come up with an effective response to change the system? I don't see it yet.
That's like the million-dollar question. What do you do? What are the first steps? I think we've had some examples. What organizing means, very practically, what you've said, going out and talking to the community, educating, but it is, I think, a struggle or an answer we're all looking for and practicing every day by day. We've already talked for around an hour. I would like to open it up also to the audience, and you've raised some very good points. But what are practical solutions? What are ways we can actually come together, organize, and fight the structures? Yes, maybe I want to open it up to the audience. You've been listening patiently for 1 hour. I'm sure you also have remarks, questions. Please do. If not, I can continue talking. Any questions, comments? Yes, for sure.
Ich kann Deutsch. Ist okay? Ja, ich wollte Dank sagen für die Veranstaltung, alle Kollegen. Ich wollte sagen, wenn jemand hat Krebs, ja, ich habe Krebs, aber die Krebsnamen nicht sagen. Krebs ist ein kapitalistisches, imperialistisches System. Wenn wir dieses System nicht kennen, wir können nicht Revolution machen. Revolution gegen was? Bei Revolution gibt es ein System. Dieses System jetzt für die Welt richtig schlimm geworden. Jetzt, wir sind hier, wir sehen diese Welt, was Ukraine passiert, was in Palästina passiert, was Iran passiert, was Kurdistan, was ist Afrika, was ist in Trump USA. Ganze Welt ist schlimm. Und wir brauchen eine Strategie. Die Strategie ist entwickelt, kann man sagen, ich habe zum Beispiel auch lange Jahre in den USA beobachten, auch über Kommunismus. Weil die Welt, wie kann man Änderung und wie kann man die Lösung finden? Wir können sagen, wir haben Krebs, aber wir versuchen, diese Lösung nicht zu finden. Woher kommt dieses Problem? wie zum Beispiel heutige Tage, so zum Beispiel in Afghanistan. Afghanistan, USA selbst im Bin Laden unterstützt und was da passiert und die NATO und lange Jahre da, viele Leute gestorben und nachher NATO alle zurückbleiben und Millionen Leute, Frauen, unterdrücken Kinder, Taliban gelassen und verhandelt zurückbleiben. Und die Idioten kommen zur Ukraine, die Leute helfen, NATO. Wie kann man machen? Ich meine, für mich, Putin auch ist Imperialist, auch unter Druck, aber die anderen auch so. Wie Deutschland zum Beispiel, warum wir nicht sagen, Deutschland für Ukraine wie Rassismus machen und für Palästina was macht. Für Ukraine alle unterliegende Fahne da gibt es, für Palästina eine Fahne kann man nicht auf der Straße laufen. Das ist ein Rassismus. Wenn die für Türkei, für Palästina sagen, helfen da, aber für Kurdistan besetzen. Und das macht Krieg. Und wie könnte das sehen, was ist diese Welt? Die Welt ist schlecht. Und die Welt, wenn wir Lösungen finden, dann wir könnten über diese Probleme reden. Ich meine, ich danke euch, aber ich sehe, diese Problem gibt es nicht. Tut mir leid. Ich wollte das hören, weil das ist, wenn wir sagen, okay, wir machen hier eine Yoga, das ist kein Problem. Wir machen ein Yoga, dann ist okay. Aber das ist das Problem dieser Welt, Dritte Weltkrieg. Wir wissen nicht, wie geht. Nuklearkrieg. Und wir müssen die Deutschland, auch ein imperialistisches Land, was Deutschland macht, wie AfD hochgegangen und die Problem ist da. Und Frauen unterdrücken oder wie Rassismus, diese alle Probleme, zum Beispiel USA für Schwarzen oder wie unterdrücken, Afrika jetzt Ausbeutung, ganze Welt, deswegen wie Menschheit in Kurdistan, Türkei, Deutschland, alle, gegen dieses System, imperialistisches System. Wenn wir, guck mal, heute die revolutionäre Leute, gibt es zwei Möglichkeiten. Die manche mit Amerika arbeiten, manche mit Russland. Tut mir leid. Und gegen dieses System, das heißt nicht so ist. Danke.
Also ich könnte auf Englisch antworten, wenn Sie wollen. I don't trust anybody who, it's unfortunate, but coming from a communist country that said we shall overcome, what I have seen is them killing people in the name of the people. So any revolution, as capitalism or communism, needs to have the individual's right in it as well. Now, individual rights are not I don't believe the roots of capitalism, but I agree with you that capitalism is so overgrown, even the Chinese have used it as a system to get out of poverty. The question then becomes, is if it's capitalism, if these are end of days for capitalism, what system can we build that replaces it? And what credible system that involves the environment, sustainability, and the right to everybody's resource can we build against it? For some of this global south, what I find is what happens, for example, in the Arabian coast is absolute theft of oil without every citizen getting something in return. In terms of educational facilities, hospitals, and everything else that they so deserve. Capitalism run amok has been our problem. I should know. I studied environmental science for a while, and we have a catastrophe awaiting us. But even this catastrophe, to me, can be averted in which the revolution asks everyone what part they would like to take in, instead of saying, we're going to make this revolution and you're part of it. How we change capitalism and what do we replace this with is a very good question. Unfortunately, we haven't gotten there. Not to mention what I call the geostrategic question between big powers and small powers. The only way the small powers would survive is to come hand in hand and have a manifesto in which their citizens approve of a certain action. Are we capable of doing such a thing? The diaspora, which is the wing of those who live in these places, is ever more divided than ever more united. So if I were to look at the diaspora, it's indicative of how much division within the countries that there are. And therefore, even if we were to look for a change to capitalism, we're not there yet in ascertaining it. But I agree with you to a certain extent.
Yeah. Well, maybe I can link this this current subject to the previous one I just talked about, the diaspora. And well, I do agree with our friend that this is what capitalism is doing against us, and we need a global movement of those being exploited and suppressed together by organizing and by getting united to push back capitalism and also build up a new system of a socially, economic, and culturally, politically system in which those suppressed and exploited could run the society. That's why I said it is not, and one cannot differentiate issue like diaspora and inside. We are all connected. Again, so people in Afghanistan, people in Iran, or in Eritrea, or in Kurdistan, I mean, and around the globe, we should work together on a global solidarity and unity. I mean, that won't happen overnight, that I know. I'm a practitioner coming from labor movement for 2 decades. So I know for building up a small cell in the society, you need to work a lot. So when I'm saying we need a global unity and self-organization, I do not mean it happens as I say so. We have to practice it. We have to try hard and harder, actually. So the subject of diaspora, again, given the fact that we are living in a digitalized world, and I'm linking it to what I mentioned in the introduction on myself and the workshop we had with some friends here yesterday on collective decision-making and collective organizing, which I call it a conceal-oriented struggle. I think not all people, I mean, people inside Iran need it. Inside Eritrea and inside Afghanistan, Kurdistan, all over the world, they need to make this, I mean, by people, I should differentiate and make an emphasis on the, well, this is a vague term. I mean, this is a class-based society. So by people, I mean oppressed, exploited. Collective decision-making and collective act and a struggle, which we call it a conceal-oriented struggle. That's what we need. And that's what been partially exercised in Rojava. I mean, well, I do not claim that it was an act by socialists or could single-handedly lead into to socialism. But I mean, it's partially one of the way people could get together and act collectively. At least the so-called problem of ethnicity and religion being partially addressed in Rojava. Because they collectively, the communities and grassroots, they get together and they said no matter, regardless of the ethnicity, whether I'm an Arab or Kurd or Ashuri, so we do build up a local council so that we all together make decision. I mean, and taking into consideration the transactional point of view, well, the gender-based discriminations, the ethnic-based discrimination, and those being exploited, I mean workers, laborers, these together, I would say we globally need to make this collective decision-making method and collective struggle, and then we have to, that's why I'm here, I think, so many other people. That's why we need to get together and link together and work together hand in hand. So we cannot single-handedly solve the problem in Iran or in Afghanistan or in Eritrea. It is an urgent need. We do not have those links or organizations who could link us together, but we have to work on it. Yeah, we have to make the grounds for it. That's what I wanted to add to this part of discussion.
Thank you very much. Do you want to respond? Still respond to the question that was asked? Möchtest du antworten auf das?
Yani rasta persgreke cihan zafın, persgreke gelan zafın, le persgreke gelan ji çaresiya wan gelan deya. Gereke em mogel veke demokratik konfederal sistem em gele cihane, jinin cihane em behevre kar u xabat xwa xort bikin ki go ev pergala kapitalizm em bidin seknandin. Ev meseleye ke rexistiniye. Hezi jin em rexistina xwa gereke mezin bikin u veke pergala demokratik konfederal sistem yani iro vek goun zanin le rojava sistemik hatrun şkandin. Gel bixwe xwe dimeşîne. Em veke gelan nebe çarene, çara me heye. Lê gereke em xwe rêxistinê xwe mezin bikin, em xwe xurt bikin, em karê xwe pevre bidin meşandin, em fêrî jiyana pevre bikin. Demokratik konfederalizm kiye? Demokratik konfederalizm emin. Em ê ava bikin, em ê xwe xwe birêve bibin. Em nikarin hêviya devleta, ji sistema bikin yani. Çareserî emin yani.
So the main important thing is that there are so many problems all over the world, the ethnic problems, the workers' problems, so everything. But how can we find a solution for that? The solution is among us. For example, for the ethnics, it is inside the ethnics. And the ethnics and the nations should be united together, and the workers, women's, all of them should be united together to build up a kind of democratic confederal system. What is the democratic confederalism? So it is us here. We can make a kind of autonomy, self-administration. We can we can have a control of over ourselves. We don't have to be we don't have to wait for the state, for the power to do something for us. So it is based on our power, it is based on our will, the energy that we have together to make a kind of system that is that can stop the capitalist system. So we have to make it inside us, among the workers, among the women, among the nations. They have to have alliance together. They have to be united. So we don't have to search a solution outside of us. For example, the state or the power or the capitalist system. It is among us, inside us.
I found that very interesting because, like, we always talk about workers, but I mean, what are the practical solutions to actually support exploited workers or exploited refugees that are picking the fruit or food that brings us to the table? I mean, if we found more actions that actually unites and brings people together throughout the internet network that we have, that could support strikes financially, for example, which could impact corporations largely, which are the ones that are lobbying for the governments, this for me would be like more a direction that we collectively need to go, because focusing too much on our differences, which is usually the highest point that we usually have, like what are the differences, how are we differently oppressed, strays us away from actual practical practical solutions that could inspire us for even more, like inspire more creativity for these actions to show them that we are the 99%. And I think we're doing too little of that.
Any further questions? Or maybe also examples of these creative... yes, please.
Hi, hello. I have one question that okay. Oh, okay. I have one question that I heard from the Kurdish women organization that they have been done this organizational work in Germany and in other part of Europe since the end of last century. And then what we see in Rojava and what the groups and the fighters there fighting against fascism is something that's appeared like simultaneously or even after this organizational work in Germany and other European countries. So I think sometimes we should not talk about how to free our own country every day and every time, but I think one way to freedom is that if we cannot build a word that in our mind, if it's so hard in our countries of origin, then why don't we try to do it first here? Like, why don't we try to build a community or a better kind of organized society in an environment that is kind of more tolerable? And then you see the Kurdish movement. It begins actually. Many parts of it begins in diaspora communities and then come back to Kurdistan and strengthens this movement there. And so that we see the questions you raised, that what is the first step? I think that could be the first step, that it's not useful to talk about how people are oppressed. At least for now, the first step is how to emancipate ourselves from this oppression. Like, this oppression that not only exists in the home countries, it's also on our own minds, that we are in this kind of strengthlessness or powerlessness. Even we live here, a more tolerable environment. So how about that we do things here and build a society here? Because this is also this environment that needed, right? I mean, I think this could be the practical way. Yeah, that's for now.
Collect some questions. There's also, yeah. Can I give it to
Hi, I would ask my question in 3 languages, so also the translator can take a break. It's a very short question. We talk a lot about what are the problems, how do we organize ourselves, but I would also like to have, because we are in the moment of despair, all of us, with everything that's happening in Palestine and everything in the world. It's just too much right now. What were one of the positive examples of what you worked on and worked out and you were proud of it and kind of gave you hope to continue? And it's an open question to all of you. So bring us example of things that you thought it worked out, because we are all going through so much right now. سوالم خیلی کوتاهه، اینکه توی اتفاقی که الان داره میفته با فلسطین و ایران و افغانستان و همه چیزهای دیگه، هممون خیلی ناامیدیم، خیلی لحظات سختی رو داریم میگذرونیم. دوست دارم از پنلیستا بپرسم که چه کاری بوده این مدت که انجام دادیم و به نظرتون خیلی موفق بوده و خیلی تونسته تاثیرگذار باشه. دوست دارم راجع به یکی از این اگزمپل ها هم صحبت بکنیم. Ich mache das auf Deutsch, hast du schon gemacht? Nee, okay, dann ich sage das auf Deutsch auch. Wir sind in dem Moment of Despair mit alles, das in Palästina passiert, im Iran, Afghanistan, und wir haben über andere Beispiele auch geredet. Aber ich wollte auch den Panelisten jetzt fragen, ob bitte mach eine Exempel oder eine Beispiel, woran du gearbeitet hast und irgendwie Positives beigebracht und du denkst, das kann uns irgendwie helfen. Ja, das war die Frage.
سلام و ممنون از همه بابت صحبت‌هایی که انجام دادید. ببینید، من یک سورپرایز الان برام به وجود اومد و این که شما اسمتون متاسفانه یادم نیست، گفتن که من از یک کشور با سابقه با یک کشور کمونیستی میام و این خب خیلی سورپرایز خوب جالبی بود برای من که توی دنیای کنونی کشور کمونیستی وجود داره. آیا ای کاش داشت ولی نداشت. من احساس نداره، ولی من احساس میکنم شما شاید داری از تجربه هایلا سراری و جنبش ضد مثلا امپریالیستی که داشت صحبت میکنی و اون رو به عنوان جنبش کمونیستی شاید داری معرفی میکنی. نمیدونم، اگه اینه لطفاً بهم بگو، چون تا جایی که من میدونم هیچ جای دنیا فعلا حکومت کمونیستی وجود نداره و ای کاش داشت اینو گفتم. ولی یه مسئله در مورد این که حالا موضوع کلی که این چند روز ما باش صحبت میکردیم و الان توی این جلسه در موردش داره صحبت میشه اینه که عنوانمون این بود که چگونه انقلاب کنیم. خب خود این چگونه انقلاب کنیم یکم یعنی سر نخ به ما میده که ما با چی مواجه هستیم و باید چی رو از بین ببریم. ولی مسئله اینه که چقدر واقعا به طور جدی بهش میپردازیم و حاضریم در موردش عمل مشترک انجام بدیم. بر مبنای واقعیت باید شروع کنیم. با چی مواجه هستیم در دنیا؟ با یک سیستم جهانی و ساختار جهانی روبرو هستیم که به طور جهانی داره همه ما رو بر ما ستم و استثمار وارد میکنه. فرقی نمیکنه کجای دنیا هستیم. این سیستم چه بخوایم چه نخوایم اسمش سیستم سرمایه‌داری امپریالیستیه. در مقابل توی ایران یک شکل بروز داره، توی آفریقا شکل‌های دیگه‌ای داره، توی فلسطین و افغانستان و کردستان شکل‌های دیگه‌ای، دولت‌هایی دارن این سیستم رو نمایندگی میکنن. پس مسئله اینه که وقتی با یک سیستمی روبرویی که هم زندگیت رو به طور فردی و هم به طور اجتماعی داره نابود میکنه و بحران محیط زیست واقعا نقشی به جایگاه من و تو به شکل اولیه نداره. مسئله اینه که چه سیستمی داره بر اساس چه ساختاری و برای چی محیط زیست رو نابود میکنه و اصلا براش مهم نیست که این اتفاق میفته یا نمیفته. من تو به عنوان فرد میتونیم تاثیرگذار باشیم در اینکه چطوری این سیستم رو از بین ببریم برای اینکه هم زندگی خودمون رو نجات بدیم و همین که چطوری جهان رو از خطر بود و نبود بحران محیط زیست نجات بدیم. این ساختار رو باید بر اساس شکستن این ساختار از بین ببری. بله، و ساختار براش وجود داره. این ساختار به طور جهانی بهش بگیم ساختار انقلابی که باید انجام بدیم یک انقلاب سوسیالیستیه که به طور بنیادین تغییر بده چارچوب‌ها و ساختارهای سیاسی، اجتماعی و اقتصادی که در تمام دنیا وجود داره. خب راه داره برای انقلاب کردن. انقلاب تئوری انقلابی میخواد و این تئوری انقلابی در سطح جهان وجود داره. ما فقط لازم نیست و فکر میکنم کافی نیست در مورد این صحبت کنیم که چطوری خودمون رو باید سازماندهی کنیم. سازماندهی کردن، چه ما متوجهش باشیم چه نباشیم، یک خط فکری حاکم برش وجود داره و متاسفانه توی این جهان اوکی باشه چشم. توی این دنیایی که متاسفانه پوینت از دستم در رفت، ولی توی این جهانی که فقط سازماندهی کردن کافی نیست، چطور سازماندهی کردن کافیه. اینکه یک، به مردم میگی معضلت چیه و دو، این معضل رو چطوری میتونی حل بکنی و سه، چجوری جنبشت رو بر اساس این تئوری انقلابی که وجود داره پیش میبری. اینها گام‌های اولیه‌ایه که برای اینکه بتونی از این سیستم خلاص بشی. هر کار دیگه‌ای جدای از این و فقط بر مبنای هویت من یا مسئله من یا هر کدوم جزئیاتی که داره اتفاق میفته رو در خود بخواد نگه بداره و پیش بره، راهگشا نخواهد بود و راه به بیرون رفت از این معضل نخواهد داشت.
Ich habe noch eine Hand da gesehen. Nur kurz, erstens, es muss alles übersetzt werden, deswegen wäre es gut, wenn ihr ein bisschen langsamer reden könnt und auch ein bisschen kürzer. Danke.
Ja, wir sind von einem armenischen Kollektiv Ararat, bauen uns seit dem Krieg 2020 auf, also gegen Artsach. Und ich wollte einfach ein Beispiel erwähnen. Es gibt so seit 2019 versuche ich ein antikoloniales Bundes aufzubauen, also Anti-Colonial Alliance Berlin. 2019 gab es so ein Forum und da hat man versucht, so sagen wir, dass nur Diaspora-Gruppen, die organisiert sind in ihre Heimatländern, also die für direkt Verbindung haben oder sagen wir, die schon organisiert sind, nicht als Individuen, da vertreten sind. So, und da waren Genossinnen aus Kurdistan, Palästina, ich weiß noch, da war zum Beispiel eine aus Philippinen gekommen, Sarah Alvarez, die ein Jahr später ermordet wurde, eine Genossin, die gegen Duterte gekämpft hat. Und genau, und dieser Versuch, da gibt es so, glaube ich, nicht so 10, 12 Gruppen, die versuchen, das zu machen. Dieses Jahr gibt es das auch noch. Es ist nicht, also zuerst muss man so austauschen zwischen den Gruppen, sehen, was haben wir so gemeinsam. So zum Beispiel Themen wie Extraktivismus und also koloniale Ausbeutung, staatliche Unterdrückung und die ganzen Netzwerke anzuerkennen zwischen also unsere Unterdrückung. Und dann so irgendwie gemeinsame Strategien und wir müssen so richtig gemeinsame Prinzipien finden, die unzerbrechlich sind und zu denen wir uns festhalten. Und genau, andere haben das schon erwähnt, aber zum Beispiel, wir haben dann Leute, die, sagen wir, für die Jinsiane Azadi-Bewegung so in Solidarität stehen, aber dann irgendwie vielleicht stehen auf einmal mit Deutschland zusammen an die Unterdrückung und Kriminalisierung von Palästinenserinnen. Und andersrum sieht man, dass Erdogan versucht, die Palästina-Solidarität einzunehmen. Also wir müssen alle einander so, wir müssen versuchen, ich glaube, mehr Energie in diese Plattform zu geben und sicherzustellen, dass, also für viele Diasporas, so, weißt du, zum Beispiel die tamilischen Genossinnen hier, oder auch Armenier, wir haben nicht so viele Menschen hier vor Ort, dass wir so die Straßen füllen können. Aber wenn wir wirklich zusammen, aber wir haben dieselben Probleme und dieselben Erfahrungen irgendwie aus aller Welt. Und so, wenn wir irgendwie es schaffen können, einheitlich zu sein, dann können wir eine Masse hier auch werden. Ja, aber dafür müssen wir noch viel mehr dahin arbeiten und zum Beispiel dieses Jahr in dieser antikolonialen Bündnis gibt es so eine Trennung zwischen lateinamerikanischen Gruppen und deswegen ist es jetzt kurzzeitig kompliziert, aber solche Sachen, ich glaube, über Jahre können wir das ausbauen und gerade hier haben wir diese Gelegenheit.
Okay, so I will, the first question was also directed to you, I believe, and because you've been organizing with the German Kurdish community for a long time, and this comment that where do we start, which was a question you put there. You said we start here within our own community, if I understood correctly. So yeah, maybe you want to respond to that. I think it was more of it wasn't a direct question, I would say. Maybe you can, it was more of a general, because Fatoui posed the question of where do we start? And we start within our own communities here, because there's so much power. I'm summarizing your question now. Maybe you want to paraphrase it in a question?
I'm saying is maybe it's better to start with the community that like countries like in Germany or like in a more tolerable space, and then to pass over this energy to the country where we come from, and because we in those countries like Germany, we can do such things like organizational work, like more easier than back to the country of origin, like for me it's China. So it could be more usable maybe, or more effective than just caring about and like solidarity with or something, a demonstration like that, because I see that is not so effective as what the Kurdish community had practiced in the last decades. I want to ask, how do they think about it? Yes.
Do you want to respond, or? Yeah.
دماغو دركتن دربي ولات حمو دحشتي ده الولات ما جنجت دسبيكر قطيم دسبيكرن gelek jme siyaset medarê Kurd jinên Kurd em derketin dervey welat em hatin vir jî me karê xwe dameşandin lê me berê xwe tim li welatê xwe berê me li welatê me bû yanî me karê xwe Ewropa û karê xwe Kurdistanê ji hevdê qut negirt destan meselê wekê gowin zanin di cara jinê Kurd li Ewropa jî hatin qetil kirin Sakine Cansız, Rojbin, Leyla Even Güyî em di cara di mala xwe de hatin qetil kirin ji ber got me karê xwe Kurdistanê û Ewropa meşandin em ti cara ji hev qut me negirtin destan kesekî got şoreşger bê berê xwe nede welatê xwe nikare bê şoreşger.
So I want to talk about this one that before I left my country, so Kurdistan, that is in Turkey. So we had a kind of organization over there, and we organized there ourselves. And in 1980s, so a kind of genocide happened in Kurdistan that was done by Turkish state. And after that, we couldn't stay there in Kurdistan. We had to leave and came to Deutschland, Germany. And here we started again to organize ourselves, but it is not cut off from the organizing inside country. So there is interrelationship and interconnection. So between the organization and organizing process here in Germany and organizing process inside the country. So I want to give you an example. For example, Sakine Cansız, Sarah, Sarah and Rojbin and Runahi, so were three women's activists outside the country, in diaspora, in Paris, but they were assassinated by the Turkish state because of their activities and because of their organizing in the Europe. And it is very important to connect these organizing process with the organizing process inside the country. And there is no gap between them. So they are interconnected to each other. In diaspora and Kurdistan, they are the same. They are complementary to each other. We have to organize ourselves here in diaspora because it is necessary.
لکودره دبی برا ببی دماغو قتلیام هبه کشتن هبه گرتن هبه ام وقت هفگرا جنن کرد ام الگل بندستن ام جدا درامن سرهلدانه وکون زانن دما جنا آمینی هات قتل کرن yani dnava roja keda ma xwe organize kir ki go em dengê va jinan jî li dervê welat jî bigihin dünyayê saê yani niha em di arifa serê cîhana sêyemîn de jiyan dikin rojhilata navîn şerê cîhana sêyemîn dest pê kiriye û li ser bedena jinê şer dest pê kiriye ji bo wê yekê ji bo ku cihê wargerê me nevin xera kirin, hê tarîbatê mezin serbedena me nevin çêkirin, gereke em weke jinê cîhanê û jinê rojhilata navîn em xwe bi rêxistin bixin. Li her cihê mesela me komînê xwe ava kirin, meclisê xwe ava kirin, evet tenê têrê nake. Dibe ki go em wek jina em derkevin skaka bi hefteya çalekiya bikin. Mesela em nikarin bêjin işte şer Afganistan heye ne mesela Kurdaya ya da İranê şer heye ne mesela me Kurdaya na mesela me mirovatiye ye ji bo wê yekê gereke em weke jinê cîhanê bi giştî xwe bi rêxistin bikin em navbera xwe de weke netsfer bindur çêkin ki go li ku derê jinek tê qatil kirin, li ku derê welatek tê dagir kirin, em li wê derê bin.
It doesn't matter where you are. When so somewhere a femicide happens or a woman is killed, so we have to be there. We are there. We have to keep our struggle against any kind of oppression. So, for example, I, as a woman and as a Kurdish one who is oppressed by different states, so we have to keep our struggle everywhere. So, because the war, the femicide, all of them are, so the focus of these are concentrated on the body of the women. So when the body of women is suffered or something is under the effect of these violences, state violences, we have to be there, we are there, and we keep our struggle. So, for example, in the Middle East, a kind of world war or the Third World War is happening. So, at the moment. So, it is important to pay attention to the other wars. For example, it is very important to pay attention to the war in Afghanistan, in Palestine, in different areas. We don't have to say it doesn't matter where war happens. All of them are interconnected to each other. All of them are connected to each other. And all the women should resist and keep on struggle against this kind of state violence, patriarchy, or something like that. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you. The second question was the positive examples that maybe we can each share from our practices. Do you want to? Yeah.
The trouble with the positive example is what goal are you trying to reach with a diaspora group, right? I relate to what he said, the young fellow in the front. We need to start organizing here. You can. Normally, some people who have studied a certain intellectual discipline come up with a club of, an association of intellectuals so-and-so. These are the least dangerous things that we can make to the governments that are back at home. An association of engineers that wants to build a road where you come from will not have any problems with the political class when he goes back there because it's less dangerous. What you are trying to achieve is a certain level of freedom for your people. Not this freedom we have here, but the freedom not to be attacked for saying what you want. That requires sociologists, philosophers, and the growing together of these people and coming together because it requires people from different disciplines, it's going to be dangerous from the get-go. Also, you're going to ask everybody who wants to take part. It has to be voluntary. And not everybody that lives in this part of the world, that left the world we come from, wants to be associated with anybody else. So that's the difficulty. As for an example of a diaspora group that has done very well here, I don't know what the measure of the success is, but again, I don't believe the revolution part of it being different. I think the Azadi revolution is a testament to a revolution that happened in Iran. Again, I go with the ideal with which it was started with, not where it has ended up. Not since the 1979 revolution, I'll be corrected by the Iranians that are here. The revolution or the call for the revolution in Iran has never been louder as it is now. And this one finally has under it the most important cause of a revolution, women. So this one is not going to die down just because the regime in Iran wants to, but how you essentially monumentally move it is going to be a question. So I guess successful examples of diasporic together needs to come with what does it mean to be successful as a goal when you're a diasporic campaign. We all have different goals, we look after different areas, and we are all alike.
Maybe this one I'll take in Farsi. Is there any translation from Farsi to English? Yeah, okay. First of all, before saying this in Farsi, I would like to say that one of our friends talked about, well, it is not only organizing or self-organizing which is needed. The theory, the horizon toward which we are moving, we have to take care of that too. I do agree with that insight, but I would add that, well, there are lots of theories and people who are producing theories and like making statements. I do agree that one intellectuals and so on and so forth. That's my experience. What we need is people doing act on the real ground with their very emancipatory theories and insight and horizon they have in mind. I do agree that we need those theories and insight for sure, but we need to act too. So these are interlinked things. These are not separated. These are things that we needed simultaneously. و در مورد سوالی که گفتن، چون مغز خودم خسته شد انگلیسی حرف زدم، در مورد تجربه مثبت، تجربه شخصی نمیتونم، همه اینا تجارب جمعی همه ماست. من بازم میخوام ارجاع بدم به تجربه کارگران هفت تپه و اینکه من دائم و بارها تکرار کردم که اقدام جمعی بر اساس تصمیم گیری جمعی توسط کارگران میتونه نه تنها مطالبات امروزشون رو برآورده بکنه تا حدی، بلکه اگر این تبدیل بشه به افزایش آگاهی و سازماندهی، میتونه به وضعیتی برسه که حتی منجر به لغو کار مزدی بشه و به صورت شورایی بشه جامعه رو هم اداره کرد. بنابراین میخوام یه دونه از اون مثالای کاملا مشخص به عنوان تجربه مثبت از این شیوه عمل بگم. موقعی که کارگران هفت تپه مورد حمله و سرکوب شدید قرار گرفتن و برای مدت خیلی زیادی جو رعب و وحشت در اونجا برقرار بود، و یک چیزی حدود بالغ بر 100 سال حکم قضایی علیه فقط چند کارگر و چند تا از حامیاشون صادر شده بود. یعنی یک حمله بسیار سبعانه وحشیانه از طرف دستگاه امنیتی قضایی رژیم اسلامی ایران، رژیم سرمایه‌داری حاکم بر ایران، و به نظر می اومد که این احتمالاً میتونه پایان قضیه باشه، برای اینکه بعد از اون همه اعتصابات با شکوه اینا گویا سرکوب کردن. ولی با همین اقدام جمعی کم کم، به خاطر اینکه کارگرها قبلا مزه تصمیم گیری جمعی و اقدام جمعی رو چشیده بودن و فهمیده بودن دستاورد داشته بود، این در خودآگاه ذهنی مجموع اون کارگران بود و دوباره شروع کردن به اقدام کردن و کاری کردن که اون احکام سنگین قضایی شکسته شد. اگرچه رژیم ایران اسمش رو گذاشت عفو رهبری، ولی در واقع شکست سیلی بود که از کارگران هفت تپه خورده بود و این یکی دیگه از دستاوردهاشون بود و دستاورد بعدی این بود که با وجود اینکه هر سه قوای حاکم، نظام حاکم بر ایران، مقننه و مجریه و قضاییه، هر سه پشتیبان اون کارفرمای هفت تپه بودن، ولی کارگران هفت تپه با این اقدام جمعیشون کاری کردن که مسئولین جمهوری اسلامی ایران که حتی در مقابل آمریکا هم همچین اعترافی ازشون سر نمیزنه گفتن هفت تپه تبدیل به پاشنه آشیل نظام شده، یعنی اینو اعتراف کردن و مجبور شدن سران سه قوه جمهوری اسلامی جمع بشن، جلسه بذارن و خواسته کارگران یکی از خواسته هاشون رو برآورده کنن و خصوصی سازی که با کلی رشوه انجام گرفته بود، به تمام سران نظام رشوه داده شده بود و لغو بکنن و دوباره اون کارخونه رو به بخش دولتی برگردونن. این البته به نظر من پایان راه نیست، بلکه شروع راه از منظر یک تجربه مثبت و موفقیت. So who is going to everybody got the translation or what?
Thank you for that example of unionizing and workers. I missed a lot, but maybe you can give me a brief summary of it after. Do you want to share examples, positive examples? We're almost at the end. I think we will stop around 5. This was 2 hours then, so I think it's more than enough. But yeah, if you want to share some positive examples.
از گرکی سپاس دکم جبو کمیته آمده کار و کسی که اف کنفرانس ارگانیزه کرنه.
I thank you those people. I thank you you for being present here, and I thank you those people who are organized this program.
ده شخص ریبر عبدالله اوجلانده جحمو گرتی سیاسی جهان رز آزادی دخوازم.
I want freedom, and I hope freedom for all the political prisoners and Sarok Apo or Abdullah Öcalan.
Yeah.
I think the positive thing, or the positive thing that we've heard, is that there was like a mass, there has been masses of demonstrations in Afghanistan that over the last 2 years that have gone mostly unnoticed by the mass media or world. I think there's also a certain sense that like the pain of Afghan people has been normalized, and people are very desensitized by the continuation of the suffering, even though even more suffering is worse. So, and I would apply this for the global south, like altogether. I would not just singular out Afghanistan in this one, but particularly like with its hype over the last 20 years, I think it can be noticed like how the shift turned like the last 2 years, and how the saving of the Afghan woman that was supposed to happen 20 years ago is complete bullshit anyway, and just an instrumentalization of the female body, regardless, to do everything that they want to do, which is extract resources at the end. But the point is that the woman went on the streets and continuously fought for their rights with lashes that they received from the Taliban, which cannot be seen as a little thing, because these lashes actually disables a lot of people, and we might just see lashes, but actually like their lifelong results that will happen, and also discourage people from going on the streets, or that like if a woman goes on the streets, then the Taliban go to the household of the woman and they punish the male members of the woman like a lot more, which also goes invisible. So as they've been like basically locked in their homes, and whenever we do demonstrations and it like receives a bit of media attention, at least in the Farsi-speaking world, we do get feedback from Afghanistan that like says like that it's good to know that you haven't forgotten about us. And for me, that's a positive thing, because if it prevents like one female body in Afghanistan from committing suicide, that's already enough. And I think that's the part that gives me motivation.
Thank you so much. I know there was one more question here, but I think we've been here for 2 hours. I want to thank all of you for coming on this panel. I want to thank the translations, especially. It's very, very hard work to translate, so thank you. We see you, and thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Let's connect, and yeah, thank you for your time.